Thank you for introducing me. Hello, everyone. And yeah, I'm going to talk about the plugin distribution. But before I start talking, I'd like to know a couple of things about you, and I have a couple of questions. First one would be, do you develop internal plugins for your language designers? So please raise your hands if you do. And a follow-up question, could you please share some experience if you have some troubles with this process? If anyone would like to share something, it would be great. If not, it's okay. Oh, I see someone.
Yes. I'm here, by the way. In general, the build language sucks, so it's quite hard to set it up. I mean, it's the truth. If you need to customize something and you need to create manually the meta XML files, this is really a pain.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. I have another question. And this is, do you ship plugins to the end users of the MPS languages? So please also raise your hands if you do. I see some more people doing this. And another follow-up questions, if there are any problems with that process. And if you can share it, it would be great as well.
Well, for a long time, it was just a pain to, I'm not sure about present state, I didn't check it recently, but if we just like bundle few plugins in a zip file, you cannot install it in IDE. It's awful, like it lasted for years.
Okay, thanks a lot. Thanks a lot for sharing. And now we can go into my presentation, and I will talk about how we see the problems and how we see the solution for this. So based on our talks to customers, we figured out that the plugin distribution as it is should look like this process. Like the first thing, you need to build your plugin, for example, on CI, whatever, you need to rebuild it if it is broken and so on. It's unavoidable. But once it's done, you need to somehow test it. And some people test it with a group of beta testers who are the first users who have the all first step experience and you need this feedback to make the plugin work better. And this might be the first pain point. You need to need this first beta developers to install your plugin. And how you do this, you send it to them manually, you ask them to do this manually, and you ask to share the feedback manually. This stuff might happen in this process. When it is validated, you have to rebuild it and resend it to them and ask to test again, and so on and so forth. Imagine that the plugin is okay now to go live, production, to be distributed inside the organization. You need to upload the binaries to the CDN. And based on our experience, customers use not like CDN, but CDN is behind the VPN so that no one from outside the company could take your precious plugin and use it. And this might be also the pain to get all of this infrastructure running. You might need to generate plugin XML, which I wouldn't like to do by myself. This one was generated for me. I wouldn't imagine how many mistakes I could do during this process. The next step is to set up plugin repository in the ID for each and every developer who needs this plugin. And imagine you have hundreds of developers and everyone needs to do something like this, to go to ID, to set the link to the plugin repository. It can be somehow broken. They might mix up some symbols in it and it will not work. They can give up and will not get the plugins from this repository. So at this point, some of your developers will not receive the internal plugin. And even if they do, even if they correctly set up this link, you then need to ask them to use the plugin, which they might not do as well, because they might ignore the email, they might ignore the plugin itself, they might not like using it, and you will not get the developers using it, and you will not get the feedback from them because they are not using it. Even if they do, even if they use, you need them to ask them to update if you update the plugin. And at this point, people will not update, and this process, it repeats itself. They are not installing, they're not updating, you don't get feedback, and you don't control whether the plugin is actually used and distributed. And JetBrains understand that this process can be troublesome. It has this kind of funnel at the end where the less and less developers get the right version of the plugin, and you don't have the control over this plugin distribution. And we worked out a solution. The process, how we see it, how it could be in the 2B world, where you firstly configure the Toolbox Enterprise. It's on-premise solution, which includes the built-in plugin repository by which you can automate uploading plugins. And these plugins from the Toolbox Enterprise repository can be just auto-installed to the developers' machines. And the cool thing about this, only the developers who are authorized to go get these plugins will actually get them. And after they get them, they start using it, and you will actually see who used this, which builds are installed, which IDs. So let's see how it actually works in reality. First, you can just upload plugin manually in Toolbox Enterprise. It's nothing special, pretty straightforward. You do it once, you upload the zip file, and that's it. I will not show how it works because it's really not interesting. I'd like to show you how you can automate the process. So in Toolbox Enterprise, there is a plugin repository. Here we have just 5 of them. And I'm going to show how we can add another one, but not like upload, like drag and drop, but automate the process. First thing, we need to generate the automation token. From here, I will call it MPS Meetup and set the deadline to be over by tomorrow, because that's when Meetup will be over. I'm missing the symbol here, sorry. Okay, I will copy this and use it to send further requests. Okay, it works. The next step I need to do is simply to upload my plugin using this command. I really hope it has all the right symbols in there, because you can't imagine how much time I spent yesterday trying to figure out where I mixed up. This curl has the name of my plugin, which is located in this folder you can see here, and the location on the Toolbox Enterprise server where to put it. So let's execute it and see if it really works on the Toolbox Enterprise server. In the plugins, let me update it, and here it is, new plugin appeared. Based on the time and date, you can see that it was actually uploaded just now. There are no downloads of this plugin yet, and let's see what you can do further. You have the plugin in the repository, then you need to get your developers to update, to install it. At this point, you go to Profiles, and here we have a nice profile for Language Designer. The profile is basically the rules which you want to have, which you want to set up for your developer. Here you can specify which applications they get. I specified one MPS build for them and some other stuff which they might need. They will definitely need the Toolbox application. And by the way, are you familiar with Toolbox application? You can raise your hands. I promise there will be no follow-ups. Okay, thank you. So yeah, here you specify the list of applications of the exact builds. You even can restrict some builds if you don't want your developers to use them for some reason, for some security or whatever. You can, if you want, specify the VM options, the ID settings for those tools they will use. But here is the point I'm going to, the plugins. You can have the plugin auto-installed to the selected builds which they are going to use. So let's also have it for MPS. I will not care about the builds for now, but you can specify which exact builds to use here, and we can add the plugin. As you can see, we can select from the plugin repository, which I showed, or you can select from JetBrains Marketplace. It could be any plugin here. But I will now select my new plugin. I can leave the space for the version blank, so it will just take the latest compatible version and install it automatically to the developer's IDE. I need to save it here. I need to save the profile. And the cool thing is for developer that they don't need to do anything besides logging into Toolbox application. Here it is. I'm logged in as my organization. It is the demo for now. You see that I got only the tools which my administrator allowed me to do. We can even check if the versions of MPS are only those which were allowed. And I will not go deeper into the settings which I set up here, but they are also specified inside this IDE from the Toolbox Enterprise settings, which we set in the profile. So what else is here? You can get the XML if you need this. Let me show how it works as well. You see in my request, I have the token because the repository is hidden behind the authorization. So if I don't use it, I will just get the blank array. Let's see if it works. And yes, it is. I can't read it right now to you, but it is an XML. Okay, so let's get back to the presentation mode. I'll keep going through the stuff which is left to show you. This one I already showed in demo mode. Let's move on. Another thing you can do after the developers installed the plugins, if you just install automatically, it's even better. You can check whether it is used. Here you can select the plugin you wanted to know more about. You see the IDEs, IDE builds, where the plugin is installed and the number of times the plugin was installed to those IDE builds. And let's get back to the process which I described in the beginning. So the building of plugin, it's something which we don't control in the Toolbox Enterprise. So it is not fixed, obviously, but let's go further and go through other steps. With testing the plugins in beta groups, it actually is solved via Toolbox Enterprise because you can specify the group of users who will get the plugins first. Non other users will get it. You will auto-install it to those IDs of those developers, and you will be able to get feedback from them. You will be able to see the analytics of these plugins as well. Uploaded plugins also is solved by this process because, as you saw, you can automate it with the help of automation tokens and the commands which I showed you. It's not needed any longer to hide behind the VPN because the plugin repository in Toolbox Enterprise is available only after the user is authorized. Plugins are really inside the company. They are not published in the marketplace if you send them to the Toolbox Enterprise repository. The generation of plugin XML I also showed you. It is possible. You can do it automatically. The setting up of the repository for the developer, this step you don't care about. If the developer is logged into the organization in Toolbox Enterprise, they just get the right plugins. Besides the plugins which are auto-installed, they can get the access to the plugins which are in the internal plugin repository, but not installed to them. They just search for them in the IDE, and these plugins are also there. And there is no need to ask the developers to install the plugins. You can specify them to be auto-installed. You can update them, and they will be updated. and this part is also fixed. We consider that this process, with the help of Toolbox Enterprise, at least for these parts which are listed here, is fixed. And for now, Toolbox Enterprise is in closed EAP. We are working closely with the customers to figure out which is missing there, what parts can be improved. You can contact me at sofia.gorinova@jetbrains.com if you're interested in learning more about other things in Toolbox Enterprise besides the things that I showed you. And you also can reach out via the website. It's a QR to the website for you if you want to also send us the request for more demo and for more information. And that's pretty much it for my presentation. And I'd like to hear the questions if you have some.
Hi, thanks for your presentation. I want to ask whether you are planning any support for installing MPS-based IDE. So when you work in MPS, you produce an RCP, so a custom IDE based on MPS. And I think in some cases it would be nice if our users could install their IDEs this way.
I am aware of these problems which customer might have. We are discussing the possibilities, the technical opportunities we have, but I can't say that it's currently on the roadmap. We just want to figure out how it can be done. And at some point, I believe it will appear in the product. But for now, we can do this.
Okay, thanks.
Just one question for you. Is it possible to share some settings together with a predefined set of plugins with this type of distribution of products? For example, if we pre-configure MPS to hide some specific UI actions, is it possible to share these settings across the development group?
Yes, the IDE settings are also possible to be specified in the profile.
One question. I guess not. Thank you, Sofia.
Thank you for your attention.